Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Kevin sent me a note, said, Steve, check out the story. Ties in so many things that are near and dear to your heart, including the fact it's published in the Detroit Free Press, the paper I delivered as a young man. Phoebe Wall-Howard writes, jury says Ford must pay $58,000 to a Fiesta owner. You recall that the Fiestas back in 2013, and give or take a few years, had problems with their transmissions. They had a dual clutch transmission. For a couple of years in a couple of different cars. The 2013 Fiesta would be a poster child here. And the transmissions were pretty much all bad. All bad. A class action lawsuit was filed. A couple different class actions were filed. Those were in the courts for a while, but you could opt out of that and bring an action if your car qualified as a lemon. So strangely, here we are in 2023 discussing a 2013 Fiesta that just went to trial, and a jury came back and told Ford to pay the owner of the car $58,000. And then, of course, attorney fees will get tacked on top of that. But a Los Angeles jury in federal court ruled recently against Ford Motor Company in the case of a guy who bought a 2013 Ford Fiesta. The car required 3 new clutches and 6 transmission repairs in less than 3 years. And that deals another blow to Ford in the case involving the unfixable defective transmission. Phoebe Wall-Howard wrote several long pieces about this transmission, and she dug up internal memos at Ford where people at Ford were discussing before they went live with this transmission. People internally saying this transmission is not working. We can't put the transmission out like this. This transmission's got problems. And it appears that what happened was Ford knew there were problems, and they were at a juncture. Do we delay the launch of these cars while we fix this problem? Or do we launch the cars and hope we can fix it later? And somebody said, pull the trigger, launch the cars. So they launched the cars with defective transmissions, and it turns out they couldn't be fixed. And I actually drove one of these cars. I rented one, and I got in it, and I honestly thought it was defective. I'm like, I can't believe they're renting out a car that's this defective. I was driving with my brother one day, and he goes, dude, are you messing with me? I go, what are you talking about? He goes, you keep doing that thing. And he's talking about how the engine would rev up and then the transmission would grab. And I go, I'm not doing anything. I go, that's the car doing it. So the passenger noticed how defective the transmission was. And I wasn't trying to make it do anything. I was just driving it. So this is the third loss in a row for Ford in cases similar to this. And these are people who've opted out of the various class actions related to the DPS6 power shift or dual clutch transmission. And those are in about 2 million cars sold over about a decade, which is the Ford Focus and the Fiesta. The smaller cars. And the dual clutch transmission operates like an automatic in the sense that you don't work the clutch. They're referring to the clutches that are inside the transmission itself. But it's a design that wasn't quite ready for prime time. Ford customers have claimed in legal filings that their 2012 to 2016 and 2011 to 2016 Focus and Fiestas were built with transmissions prone to shuddering, slipping, bucking, jerking, hesitation while changing gears, premature internal wear, delays in downshifting, and in some cases, sudden or delayed acceleration. One of the terms they actually use is called juddering. Juddering, Juddering. That's an internal word that apparently transmission guys use to describe the kind of jerking, shaking movement that a car has when its transmission is slipping. Juddering. Many of those vehicles are on the road today. I get phone calls about once every week or two from someone who says, I just bought a Fiesta or I just bought a Focus, and it's got this weird transmission problem. And my first thought is, how would you not know that by now? You know, you're going to buy a car quickly. Just Google. If you Googled 2013 Ford Focus, you'd get a million articles about bad transmissions. So you test drive the vehicle and see how it shifts. The 8-person jury in federal court took less than 2 hours to reach a unanimous verdict and awarded the plaintiff $58,000 after finding that Ford willfully violated the California lemon law called the Song-Beverly Consumer Warranty Act, which does protect consumers by requiring repairs of automobiles to be completed within the warranty period. And if there are repeated problems or so many days spent in the shop, it can qualify as a lemon under this statute. The dollar award amounted to the plaintiff was the maximum allowed in this case, and it marks the third time in 3 trials that a jury has found Ford liable under the Lemon Law for alleged defects in Focus and Fiesta power shift transmissions. Meanwhile, his lawyer, Scott Wilson from Knight Law Group, our clients waited a long time for this day to come. Meanwhile, Ford's spokesperson told the Free Press, we thank the jury for their service and respect the court's ruling. Now, the question is, do you respect it enough not to appeal it? We'll see. Roger Kiernos of the Knight Law Group told the Free Press, we are hopeful that this spurs resolution of the remaining cases because they've got more in the wings, as they say. Knight Law is based in Los Angeles, has more than a dozen cases headed to federal court, and countless others are pending with other law firms. This man here bought his Fiesta with 15 miles on it in 2013. Problems with a significant shaking or shudder, not judder, but shudder, began only months after the sale and continued for the 2 years he owned it. And he finally just traded it in and he got rid of it. But he still filed the action. 11 months after trading the Fiesta in, he sought reimbursement for his troubles, and Ford said, you're not entitled to anything. Sorry about that. You get nothing. Meanwhile, an attorney from Kansas City represented Ford in the case. She told the jury during her closing argument that the evidence showed that the plaintiff drove the car roughly 25,000 miles during the 814 days he owned it, and that it was only in the shop for 10 of those days. But remember that during those 10 days, it had quite a few repairs. It required 3 new clutches and 6 transmission repairs. So those are some serious repairs in those mere 10 days. Also, she pointed out, the plaintiff never had to pay out of pocket for repairs of the shudder problem. And Ford's own expert showed test videos of Fiesta and Focus models demonstrating the shudder problem was minor, she said. The plaintiff also never asked for Ford to replace or repurchase the vehicle when he owned it, and that's something they're complaining about. But the man's attorneys pointed out to the jury the Lemon Law does not require a customer to stop driving a car that has significant problems. Otherwise, many of these people would say, well, I can't file a claim because I got to keep driving the car. That's the only car I've got. And if the car will still get you from point A to point B, you'll use it. It just won't get you as comfortably as it ought to. What does matter, he said, is whether the company failed to repair the car to be in compliance with the warranty after a reasonable number of attempts, which is very, very clearly what the law says. The fact that the plaintiff didn't ask for the car to be replaced or repurchased also is not required under the Lemon Law. And if you read most Lemon Laws, there's actually 3 things that can settle the case. One is they can buy the car back from you. Number 2 is they can swap you into a replacement car, which of course you don't want because they're all defective. Or number 3 is they can pay you damages. They can compensate you with money and say, here's some money for your troubles. So you're allowed to pursue that under the Lemon Law. So the plaintiff's attorney reminded the jury of internal Ford communications entered into evidence that characterized Ford engineers knowing of the problems with the power shift transmission before this man even bought his car, and that they admitted they didn't have a fix for it. We know the problem's there. We're still working on it. Plaintiff filed his suit in Los Angeles Superior Court in 2017, with the complaint later being removed to federal court. So I suspect that Ford Motor Company thought, we'll have a better chance in federal court. Let's go there. Didn't work out that way. Plaintiff sought reimbursement for the vehicle plus civil penalties, which is up to twice the value of the vehicle under California law. The jury's verdict awarded the man $19,000 as restitution, plus the maximum civil penalty of $38,000. So that's how that all adds up. Now, there have been 2 other previous trials that went against Ford and awarded damages of roughly $64,000 and $22,000, but that second verdict was overturned by a U.S. District Court judge. And so that's the question I had earlier when I said that Ford made a statement saying that we are respectful of the court's ruling and we thank the jury for their service. Are they respectful enough to not bring a motion to have it set aside or to appeal it? We'll see. As of right now, there is a judgment in favor of the man for $58,000. And that is after he traded the vehicle in, but had to live with it for that length of time. I think it said about 800 days. But that right there is a typical new dual clutch transmission consumer experience. That is, it went in for new clutches and transmission repairs, and the problem was never solved. And my understanding of the problem is that once the transmission starts slipping and shuddering and juddering and doing all the other different things that they do, that something has gotten loose inside there and gotten wet from a clutch pack. And once it happens, it's going to keep happening. But if they replace all the internal parts and it's dry again, it'll shift okay until it doesn't. And the problem is that it turns out that simply driving it as you drive any automatic transmission can cause this to happen. And so my personal belief, after watching this entire thing unfold, because I was practicing law long before these came out, became aware of them when they were happening. I handled quite a few cases back in the day, closer to 2013 than to now. And my understanding was that Ford just thought every day that we can tack on here, that we can survive to live another day, that these cars will get traded in, they'll get sold, they'll get wrecked, they'll run out of their warranties. And so over time, a lot of these claims go away on their own. But somebody who filed their action within the statute of limitations, within the correct period of time from when they purchased the vehicle and so on, they have the right to have their day in court. And so it's unfortunate that it takes a guy like this 10 years to get to court, almost 10 years, because we're talking about a 2013 vehicle, although I don't know if he bought it. He could have bought it in 2012, so I don't know, but approximately 10 years to get his day in court, but he won. So if we hear anything about an appeal or anything like that, I'll let you know. But as of right now, this is a big win, and the jury has spoken in federal court. Ford must pay $58,000 to a 2013 Fiesta owner. Kevin sent to me, thanks a lot, and Phoebe Wall-Howard, who does great work at the Free Press, wrote that article. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Always write down the important stuff. Later, you can forget where you wrote it down.